Tonight's story is a masterclass not just in bad DMing, but also in the broken brain of the man behind the screen. We have the classic blunders in the Living God DMPC, dice that magically ignore natural 20s, rules that keep changing, but there's a twist. A DM with extreme personality issues who's just barely in the closet while it collapses around him. Of course, before this video begins, a thank you to today's sponsor, Shell yeah, adventurers, ready to pinch the day with the ultimate tabletop role-playing game? Welcome to Grit and Glory, the dual-sided tabletop game where gritty survival meets glorious, god-slaying campaigns and everything in between. Scuttle over to the GNG YouTube channel and socials for deep dives, designer chats, and sneak peek close-ups. And the Kickstarter's about to start, running from September 24th, wait, is that today? All the way through October 24th, that's your tide to ride. Create characters that truly crack the shell with uncapped mind, body, and soul stats to break limits, mix and match ancestries, talent trees so flexible you'll never molt the same way twice. Obviously there's so much more than I have time to tell you, but grab your party, sharpen those claws, and join the Grit and Glory swarm on the Kickstarter, link below. See you there. Roll post. I have a large D&D group fluctuating between 6 and 12 people, depending on schedules and what's going on in our lives. We're all close friends in our mid to late 20s who get together on a weekly basis to play. A few years back, we were meeting up at a local game shop to play, but the shop owner kept bringing over new people to join us. He would always introduce them by saying that they had never seen a D&D game before and were interested in learning what it was like, only for us to ask and then find out that in 9 out of 10 cases, they had already been playing for multiple years. We told him on multiple occasions that RPG groups can only get so big and to organize together everyone that he wanted to introduce into another group. He wouldn't do it, so we got to a point of having a sort of scripted disclaimer for anyone who sat down. Went like this. We don't really have room for new people to join up, but you're more than welcome to sit in on the game and see how you like our gaming style. See if there's anything you would take away to use or not use in your own games. Alright, okay. Pause the post. I get that he's the shopkeeper and he owns the place, but this is a terrible offload. Aside from the fact that it's not a nice thing to spring on your paying customers, putting everybody at one table is just bad logistics and it's bad for the culture of the store. Even if all of the players are great, perfectly good, a lot of great players wouldn't play well with every other great player. They want different things. So I'm giving the store owner here a big, fat red flag. Moving on, 5 and 6 players are the commonly accepted standard, but the thought of up to 12 players is wild to me. Does turn order pass like a UN council meeting? How do you make sure all the characters get developed? Who talks to the NPC? These are questions worth asking. I'm sure that they have special provisions for this, and it clearly works given that the players keep coming back week after week, so I'm not giving this a red flag, but I'm tempted to give it like a yellow flag. This is a yellow flag situation. I'm not going to say it's bad, but it's very situational, and if anyone new to the game is listening to this, do not start off by doing this. This takes a certain level of experience to pull off. Anyways, I'm sure that's the biggest problem we're facing today, yeah? No, it's not. Never is. That's what we do. Roll post. This system worked for the most part until the shop owner introduced Sean. Sean was a short, scrawny, yet chubby guy in his mid-20s. I only say this because it comes into play. Sean seemed happy to sit in, but at the end of the session, he asked when he would be able to DM for us. We already had 2 DMs, myself included, who rotated long-term campaigns on a weekly basis, so the group told him that there had been a miscommunication. He stormed off, upset. The next week, the shop owner approached us mad, telling us to make room for another game. I had been burnt out a little, so we figured, hey, no big deal. We'll let him run a game, and I put my story on hiatus. Sean's game begins with several people playing, but the ones to keep in mind are my best friend, Jack, who played a male Tabaxi Ranger. Also, there were 2 women in the group. One playing a rogue, I forget what subclass, but she played her like Sherlock Holmes. and a vengeance paladin that had grown up on a farm her whole life. The campaign started at level 3 with our characters in rolling fields of farmland, set like 1700s America. Farmers wanted to settle land that was inhabited by, quote, monsters and natives, but they were paying to have the party drive them out. Already, we were a bit awkward to play it, but he tried to assure us by saying it was a story with good and bad on both sides. He then introduced one of the stupidest DMPCs in the form of a penguin folk thing that was essentially a god at literally everything. We would have avoided talking to it altogether, but Sean made it to where every time we ignored it, quest givers and NPCs would talk directly to the penguin, and only the penguin, as if it were our party face. And there it is, bad DMs and DMPCs. Name a more iconic duo, cause I can't. Still, the mental image here is hilarious, because I'm a visual thinker. I'm imagining the DM just sitting there behind his screen, muttering a conversation to himself like he's losing his mind, while 6 to 12 people are just sitting there staring at him. Still, this does circle back to a potential negative I mentioned earlier. When I asked how the spotlight is divided, how characters get developed, and who talks to NPCs, I thought it was bad enough that 6 to 12 players may even get less than 10% of actual playtime. Now they have to acquiesce to a weird penguin OC. What? That being said, I'm still oddly sympathetic to the setting idea. If the players had actually agreed to and wanted to play in a frontier campaign where you start as the invading force and have to confront the humanity of the so-called monsters you were sent to exterminate, that could be amazing. I could see a really cool campaign somewhere buried in there. Is this just Avatar, though? That's the question. Yeah, it kinda is. Anyways, roll post. One thing that you can count on as persistent throughout the sessions played was that no matter what you rolled outside of combat, and several times in combat, you never succeeded the DC, even with a nat 20. But somehow the freaking penguin always succeeded. Another thing that is awkward to bring up but needs to be kept in mind, the DM would awkwardly bring up how straight he was, how many women he could pull, creepy things like that. But at every chance he got, he would openly use the game to hit on Jack. One of the first quests was to figure out what was wrong with one farmer's land, some sort of plague that was bringing out monsters. We talk to the farmer, and Sean presents him as obviously shady. One player gets a nat 20 in insight. He seems perfectly fine to you. Jack rolls a 13. You stare deep into his eyes. He looks back at you. Something's off, you can just tell. He walks closer and puts a hand on your shoulder and reassures you. All of this was being done by the DM to Jack as roleplay. We're all a little perplexed because that did not fit anything that was going on seconds before, with a worse roll. Okay, pause. This is another one of those weird mental image scenarios. So the party shows up, asks a farmer for information, everything's pretty normal, but he singles out one man, puts his hand on his shoulder, and stares in his eyes like, "Listen to me, it's all gonna be okay. We're gonna get through this, you and me." Dude, am I high? Am I missing something? This is something that would happen in like a melatonin dream. I wish I had the time to edit this more because I could make some hilarious cutaway gags and get some of those YouTube Shorts views. Unfortunately. Next, we investigate the farm. Another note, the lady playing the farm girl turned paladin actually grew up on a farm. This is one of her first D&D games and she was worried about metagaming, so we told her to play something that she knows about. We look over the farm and she points out that the corn he's growing is in a weird spot and out of season. It turns our attention to that, and we begin investigating. We rolled high numbers that turned into 25s, 23s, and throw a nat 20 in there that turned into a 28 from the rogue. Sean is obviously mad and keeps trying to divert us away from the corn. He tells us nothing of note there. Almost the whole session is spent looking over the farm and finding nothing, with Sean scoffing and laughing at the two women in the group, telling them they might as well not even try because they're not helping no matter what their roles are. Night comes and monsters arrive. Some sort of hellhound beasts that we quickly realized Sean had homebrewed because their stats changed on a dime. And not just their saves or their attack bonuses, but their armor class, their hit points. And what do you know, every attack the ladies tried was never enough to match their armor class. In this ridiculous fight, we're all gravely wounded until the freaking penguin goes on a murder rampage, taking out all 6 beasts in one turn. We ask what his class is. It's Rogue. Eye rolls all around. Nope, sorry, flag on the play. In what scenario could a rogue possibly take out 6 beasts in one turn? Usually, rogues are great at precise, single-target strikes and also utility skill checks. I've never once heard of a rogue that is meant to specialize in area of effect attacks. 1 kill per turn, that's pretty good. That's your rogue. 2 kills maybe with the reaction or the opportunity attack, but 6? You know, I struggle with disassociation. I am struggling to disassociate while reading this absolute butchering of the game. Still, I'm gonna give the DM some flowers here. I understand why he would write the corn being out of season and planted improperly. The DM shouldn't be expected to know everything. Still, if I was the DM and one of the players had farm experience and said like, hey, this corn's out of season, what I would say is, oh, sorry, please stop paying attention to that. I just wrote that there. Ignore it. Anyways, where were we? Since everyone got injured, we all tried to clean our wounds and rest for the night. Apparently, we all started with a health potion that we weren't told about. Jack drinks his and Sean asks for a roll. He goes to roll 2d4 for HP and Sean says, no, a constitution saving throw. Okay, so the health potions are poison, maybe. Nope. Sean describes as Jack's character changes gender into a female tabaxi. Oh no. We're all utterly confused. Sean begins to describe how potions are apparently always supposed to work like that in every game. If you don't add a large rock of salt, salt that has been crushed into table salt or some other mineral and rock or sand varieties, the potion has unintended side effects. Now that Jack's character is female, Sean turns up the dial to a very creepy degree. The farmer shows up and begins hitting on the tabaxi, but all the players can see that it's a thinly veiled excuse for Sean to hit on Jack. He mentions things that describe Jack and not the character at all. We're all so weirded out, heavily, but no one more so than Jack. Another player tries to break the awkward air by saying, dude, if you want to hit on Jack, just ask him out. Sean flies off the handle and begins yelling at the player.
Bro, you think I'm fleeking gay? I bet I get more pussy than you.
Things like that. Then it turns into wanting to take the player outside and fight. We are all completely done at this point. Call it and leave. No. All you in the comments, Crab King's orders, stop typing. Stop. Sean can't be gay. He turned Jack into a woman. Obviously, that is the most straight thing you could possibly do. If you're a man, being attracted to a woman, I guess it's technically straight enough, sort of, but like, fine. You didn't have to work for it. You're just gay without being attracted to or involved with a man. You were handed it. Now, being attracted to a man that you forcibly turned into a woman. You see what I'm saying here? There's a conversation. That proves that you're so straight, you put in the work. You're willing to go above and beyond human rights and every ethical line. Make the hard choices. Dig deep to be a straight man. You earned it. Okay, you weren't just handed it. You could have been gay, you could have been straight, you could have been anything, but no. Sean did the hard thing. We could learn a lot from him, okay? Up your straight game. What am I doing here, man? What's this channel even about anymore? We skip a week just trying to avoid conflict and show up the following week. In that time, I talk to Jack and he tells me how after the game, Sean tried asking him over to his place very flirtatiously. He turned him down and he snapped, going back into some middle schooler sounding tirade about how he was completely straight and Jack was gay for coming on to him. Obviously, Jack was weirded out. We show up next week and there's Sean. He's already mad. He then proceeds to blame the women on how things fell apart. That if the women just hadn't been there, everyone wouldn't have tried to be so macho trying to argue with him. That's enough for us to tell him off. It's not the lady's fault, it's yours. You're acting weird, Jack is weirded out, your ego and insecurities are insufferable. What happened next is hard to describe. He switched back and forth for about 10 minutes between his prideful defending side and a vulnerable, I'm so sorry side. On one second, he's acting like he can take us all on and beat our asses. The next, he's on the verge of tears saying he doesn't mean it. After calming him down from the scene he made in the game shop, somehow we're convinced to at least play out one last game in this farm mystery. I'm sorry, is the DM Kanye? Anyways, we're about to read the big finale, but actually, jokes aside, I have experience with people who act like this, and this is genuinely deeply concerning. So, let's be armchair doctors for a moment. I have 0 degrees, 0 credentials, and I'm about to prove it with my completely subjective opinion here. Stop. Okay, warning. I end up going on a much longer rant than I initially intended, so if you're not interested in all that and just want to get on with the story, I chaptered it ahead so you can easily shoot through. Anyways, if you're into uneducated opinions that have nothing to do with D&D, here you go. That said, if you ask me, this is exactly what somebody who's deeply at war with themselves looks like, and it's so brutal that it's clearly visible. All of us fight little battles with ourselves, that's normal. But this is an extreme mental unraveling. It goes further than being gay or straight or macho or vulnerable. This is a guy who doesn't even know who or what he is, so he's wearing skin suits that don't fit and fall apart quickly. You see this a lot with like teenagers or young adults who carry a lot of angst, but almost no actual identity, nothing strong to tie themselves to. And sometimes that's not our fault. If you grow up in an environment that brands you with burning shame cycles and you're constantly taught that you're inherently bad, you're very likely to act in ways that are inauthentic and unnatural and sometimes wrong. The good news is this is a solved meta. First, you gotta unlearn the shame part and do really lame and cringy things like self-compassion and healthy mental exercises. But we don't like doing that. That sucks. Next step, now that you're unashamed, you can slowly learn who you are in a judgment-free mind. You can try different things and see what clicks. You can try cooking or fashion or music, or that nerdy tabletop game with the dice and the paper and the pencils and all that. And that's pretty much it. That's the meta. It's not easy, but it is simple. Anyways, I'm sure one of you in the comments will have a better version of the point I'm trying to get across, or maybe I'm way off, but that's kind of what I'm gathering from one person's account of another person's actions. Of course, that's where my sympathy and goodwill ends, because nothing excuses what happens next. Fast forward through several poorly balanced combats later, beaten by God Penguin of course. We trace the monsters back to the corn. Surprise, surprise. Oh, so forget everything I said about the DM not knowing about corn planting cycles. He immediately starts boasting that we never saw this coming and how all we had to do was check the area and we could have avoided all the conflict because we would have seen the giant stone statue behind 2 rows of corn. Oh, this is terrible. I was ready to have another combat encounter outside the game. He particularly got smug and rude towards the ladies. We had had about enough until the 2 women said to at least finish the session, or we would never hear the end of this from the shop owner. The farmer had apparently put the statue there because he was a secret cultist. We head back to the farmhouse and find a secret hatch to a ritual room. Also, in another place we had searched extensively with good rolls, but somehow found nothing. There's some sort of sex cult thing going on, and he begins describing in far too great of detail what the cultists are doing to one another. His excuse for the amount of detail is because he wants us to know that that's why they didn't see us come in. We are already ready to pack our stuff and get the hell out, when, while continuing to describe graphic stuff, the DM walks over and begins massaging Jack's shoulders. Nope, no, we're out. as we're packing and leaving, we can hear him say stuff like, "What? It was part of the role play." We talked to the store owner early the next week, and he actually sides with Sean, saying that he can't keep anyone from his shop and that we're being bullies. He then tries to taunt us by saying, "Besides, it's not like you're gonna play anywhere else." Okay, we'll see about that. It's been 2 years. I've never set foot back in that place. We've been happily playing some really great campaigns at Jack's apartment, and we haven't seen Sean since. As much as I would normally talk about like the mechanics of being a good DM and what went wrong in game, I feel like Sean can't be a good DM until he gets like extensive therapy and internal work done. I could say things like, "Oh, don't have the DMPC, the corn thing was really stupid." But the thing is, even if we address that, even if Sean knew all of the correct mechanical things to do to be a good DM and storyteller, as it stands, I just don't think he's capable of being a good DM until he gets these personality issues solved. It said he's still in his mid-20s, so as messed up as this was, he still has a lot of runway to turn this ship around, which I'm gonna have hope for. But anyways, yeah, send your stories on email or Reddit, and as always, till next time.